All right, folks. So what I wanted to talk about this morning was talk about the document that's due for this class, because for 131, you guys are looking at a choice between two documents. You're looking at what's called the nullification crisis. Really, this is not quite the birth of sectionalism, but it has a lot to do with Southern thinking versus Northern thinking. Andrew Jackson, who's become president, is very much, I got to say, more Donald Trump than Trump is at this particular point, because he's a no-holds-bar, by God, I'm president of the United States president, who is going to make things his way. Well, even though he's a Southerner, he represents business as well. He's anti-bank because he doesn't believe in the national bank, because at one point the old national bank forced him to go bankrupt, so he's hated bankers all his life. But as president, he's representing the national interest. And so what's going to happen is they're going to level a series of tariffs. And the tariffs are, the idea being is it's after the War of 1812. And as I'll talk about in another section, the War of 1812 is responsible for the birth of a lot of our modern manufacturing. And so what he's trying to do is he's trying to protect business by adding tariffs, import tariffs, onto foreign goods. Well, the problem with this is slavery is still rampant in the South. And so what we're looking at is these Southerners who don't manufacture anything. They're strictly growers. They're supplying cotton to Great Britain right now. They're supplying cotton to that great industrial industry, as well as cotton to the North. So they have to buy everything else. Well, when it comes to slavery, they still have to outfit the slaves. The slaves have to be able to work, so they've got to have shoes, they've got to have clothing, they've got to have things that are bought by the Southerners. They have an abundance of money when it comes to the rich planters who are outfitting the slaves. And the problem that we're looking at is these tariffs are going to jack up the price of goods. Well, the Southerners are buying their goods from Europe. And these tariffs are trying to protect the American factories by jacking up the price of the imports and forcing people to buy northern goods, try to buy domestic goods. And so the issue here is being that even though the price of imported goods is going up, the price of domestic goods is going up too, because they're working to really keep control and to keep their profits up. And so what's going to happen is they're going to create some tariffs, and the tariffs are going to push up the price of goods. And what will happen is the South, led by John C. Calhoun, who is at one point vice president for Jackson, is going to say, listen, we're not going to put up with this. This is sectionalism. This is partisan government. And so what you're doing is looking out for only one party. You're looking out for only the northern industry, and it's costing the South. So what will happen is John C. Calhoun is going to quit being vice president. He is going to author something called the Nullification Bill. And the Nullification Bill simply says, listen, we're part of your union because we agreed to be part of your union. And as such, we can unagree. We can go ahead and decide not to be part of the union, or we can agree not to be bound by all its laws. We can choose to nullify laws that we feel that are unfair. And so they're going to pass a nullification bill that says, listen, we're going to ignore your tariffs. We're not going to collect your taxes. We're not going to deal with this law because we feel like it's unfair. Jackson, in his stead, is going to say, you know what, I'm president, and you're going to do what I say you are. And so he is going to force through Congress something called the Force Bill. And the Force Bill is the other document you get to choose from. And the Force Bill simply says, listen, I'm the president of the United States. I make the laws. I enforce the laws. And this says that I can call forth the federal army. I can call the army and force them to collect the taxes you're not paying if you choose not to pay them. That I can use this to forcefully implement the laws and the taxes of the United States. And so this becomes quite a bit of a standoff between the two parties along the way. Jackson is really pushing his element. Calhoun is really pushing his element. And what it is, it's part of that first really big break. I mean, it's been rising up all this time that the South is largely agrarian, that the North is largely industrial, and they have different interests. And that's what you have to think about this, is the two parties with different interests. Think about if you have ever been north of the Mason-Dixon line, if you've ever been to New York, if you've ever been to California, heck, if you've ever been to Florida. So if you go south, it's a different culture, it's a different people. Here in Western Carolina, where we're largely at, it's not the same as if you go towards the coast. The ethos, the idea of what happens west versus what happens east or north or south is a different belief system. And so we're looking not only at a cultural belief barrier, but we're also looking at a huge shift in economics. And so this is the beginning of this sectarian idea that the United States isn't quite so united, that industry perhaps isn't compatible with that agrarian slavery in the South, even though it's being used to really supply industry. We're looking at a huge difference in two beliefs. So go ahead and look at the nullification document. Go ahead and look at the force bill and decide which one that you want to break down, because I think they're both huge elements when it comes to this. And that way you have a little bit of background before you go ahead and start in your writing for it. All right, take care, folks.